Douglas Crytzer.
Hello. What do you say, fellas?
Probably one of the most interesting people that we know.
You guys need to get out more.
How's living the farm life?
It's good. It's good. It's a beautiful weekend. Didn't really have a lot of chores, so it was nice, you know. Did the feeds, spent some time with the animals, worked on projects that weren't necessarily farming, but that, you know, bring value to the farm. And it was good. It's a good weekend, yeah.
What was the inspiration of starting this whole thing?
You know, it just kind of happened. My son's farm is down the road. He called and said, hey, there's 170 acres for sale surrounded by the Conservancy. That was Sunday. We walked it Monday. We bought it Thursday.
Wow. And
then once you buy it, you know, it's a valuable piece of land. And that was right before this was named a World Heritage Site.
Wow.
So now it's worth twice as much as it was. We just got lucky, you know. But, you know, then you got to figure out, you have the land, what do you want to do with it? You know, I grew up farming. Never farmed goats, never farmed sheep. So, you know, just kind of evolved that way. It was very organic. We weren't, you know, there wasn't a plan. There was nothing here, nothing.
You just like get inspired by something and then you're like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you know, when I get something in my head, it's going to happen, you know, and Julia's even more so that way. And I don't think that there's anything that we couldn't do. I really don't. You know, I always tell my people, as far as my crew goes, they could build the Empire State Building. They need the time, but they could get it done. You know, and that's how I feel about what we are doing in this location. We can do whatever we want. Yeah. So,
who's your crew exactly?
I have a 4 Amish family, 4 guys, a father and 2 sons, and then a brother. And I used to live in that community up there. I know that community really well. And admire their work ethic, admire their sense of humor, admire their determination. They're very curious. Like they want to be challenged. They want to try new things. And I never have a bad day at work. You know, I mean, literally. Who can say that? You know, they always have a smile on their face, and they're very good at what they do.
Sorry, go ahead.
For the viewers, just what do you do for work? Your construction company?
Yeah, I do new construction. I do timber framing. I do additions. A lot of custom kitchens and baths. We have our own cabinet shop, and all these cabinets here were made in that cabinet shop, and we are slammed. And it's the highest quality cabinetry that you can get for less than you would pay at these so-called custom cabinet shops that aren't that at all, you know?
Right.
And it's fun work. You know, I really like bringing value to somebody's home. I like when I leave there, I know I earn my check, and I like that their home is more valuable, more comfortable, and more admirable, if you will, you know? The guys are pretty modest, but it's always fun for me when they say, well, that looks nice, you know?
It's so satisfying when you have something in your head and you have to design it.
Yeah.
And then it comes to fruition and you're like, whoa. By the end, you're kind of just like, oh, that was cool. It's done. But then you have to think back, holy shit,
it happened.
There was years that had to go into this.
Yeah.
That, you know, now I'm finally at this point. It's so cool.
Yeah. It took a long time. Like when I stopped producing races, I knew I was done the very minute that I said I'm done. I was not at all happy with the governing body of adventure racing. I thought it was a huge fail. I did a pretty adequate job of, you know, giving an option to people, and they were just afraid to move on. They really couldn't get past themselves. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And then it was, what's next? Well, I grew up farming. I grew up in construction. My father was a great contractor. And he made me work with all of his skill guys, the block layers, the stone guys, the finish carpenter. And he always, every year, put me with a different part of the crew.
That's awesome.
So I've always had it, you know, it's always been in my wheelhouse, one of my tools in the toolbox. But if you would have told me that, you know, after the military, after adventure racing, that I was going to go into construction, I'd said no. not happening.
Yeah,
but I'm really in a good place. I really like it. Really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's one thing that we know about you, it's that you're very driven. Like you said earlier.
Oh, sorry.
If something is inside of your head, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's. I was a problem child, if you will. ADHD was not diagnosed back then, and you're lazy. You don't want to do well in school. I didn't want to be in school, let alone worry about it. I wanted to be out in the woods, so I would miss a lot of school, hunting and exploring. Doing the things I loved, and it was really a great education for me at a very young age. And I got into training horses with a professional trick rider, Rita McGrady, who was also an auctioneer. And I was making real money at 16, at 17, at 18, between construction, training horses, and then my other little adventures. I was making grown man's money,
You were gaining real skills rather than learning how to solve for why.
I'll tell you what, I'm not a big fan of our educational system for a lot of reasons, but I think we can do so much better. One of the things that really brought it home for me was seeing my daughter in Waldorf school. And the whole principle of Waldorf is teaching children to teach themselves. And they teach basic skills too, like the kids prepare their own meals. They do their own dishes. They clean up around the classroom. They go outside all the time. And I thought that was a more practical way. And I don't think that any young person should be sitting in a room for 7.5 hours a day. It's no way to learn.
Is that like a high school or was that?
She went kindergarten through 8.
Oh, okay. So it's like a Montessori school.
Yeah, it's a Montessori school. And it was great. It was great. I built a chicken coop. We spent 3 days building a chicken coop. Who does that in school?
That's sweet.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we say this all the time, but school basically just teaches you how to be an employee. They give you these tasks that you learn how to sit and pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. No kid should have to sit in a classroom for 7 hours straight.
Right.
Learn things that they're going to forget pretty much right away.
Or that they don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not practical,
Yeah. The sad part, too, is that I feel like a lot of teachers aren't really even qualified to be in that position. A lot of teachers are definitely, but there's definitely a lot of teachers that aren't good.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the hardest job in the world to become a teacher.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're going to have a lot of people that don't really deserve to maybe impose their ideas on your kid.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me. In the Amish community, they go to school till they're 14 years old, and then they start their apprenticeships, and they have a lot of say in where they go and what they do, and they're out there making a real living, 16, 17, my Andy started with me when he was 14. He's 18 now. He owns a 197-acre farm.
That's insane.
Come on.
Wow.
I've never seen that kid not smiling. Never. I've never seen him without a smile on his face.
Wow.
Yeah.
195 acres.
18
And
years
a
old.
farm, too.
18 years old.
It's one thing to just own 100 acres. It's another thing if there's a farm on it, too.
No big deal to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like...
That's wild. Is that pretty much this whole community? Everyone around here is Amish?
Not here specifically, but up in Smicksburg, that's where I lived for a while and home. And I just got to be good friends with one and then another. And, to this day, one of my best friends, Melvin Troyer, one of the best guys I've ever known. A solid guy and a great family man, great, just good to be around. And, he's a real friend. I really, really trust that friendship a lot, as I do with the Hosteller boys, and a lot of the other guys too, just because I know their values. And for me, coming from the military, that's a big part of who I am. The Army values are like, they're foundational. That's all they are, but things like the 4 C's, courage, candor, competence, commitment, if you have that, if you have the courage to try something, the candor to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, what you need to do to be good at that, the competence that you gain over time doing that, and the commitment to making it all happen, what can't you do? You know. So I mean, they share a lot of very similar values, and that's important.
How do they instill these foundations in you in the military?
You know, they shove it down your throat, right? You got to listen. It's the Army, right? That's what you do. You follow orders, right? So when they say these are your leadership principles, these are your leadership traits, you got to memorize them because you're going to be tested on it. You better know it. That's how you learn it, you know. But learning how to apply those, you do it by leading, you know. And I started leading very early on in my career. I wasn't following for very long, and I got a leadership role in a very prestigious unit, 82nd Airborne Division, in their division recon, and I was a team leader within 18 months.
Wow.
So
what does that mean exactly?
So I lead a reconnaissance team. I have 4 guys, and our job is to find the enemy, to gather information on the enemy, right? Who, what, when, where, why, how many of them, what their uniform looks like, what weapons they're carrying. That's going to tell you a lot about how well they're trained, how good their morale is, what their daily activities are. And you got to go into their backyard to do that. So you have to learn how to be extremely stealthy, and you have to learn to be very independent. It's not like today where you can pull out a sat phone and call somebody. We couldn't do that, right? If we had a lethal emergency, we had to wait for our 12-hour rotation when somebody was going to fly over us so that we can make a direct call to that aircraft.
Wow. Because
there were no sat phones. There was no 911, you know?
Are you saying that you guys would infiltrate, or would you do reconnaissance? Like if you were would you infiltrate an enemy territory, or would you just do reconnaissance from a distance?
No, you can't do that, especially in the jungle. You know, my area of operations was mostly Central America, and you have to be able to move through that terrain and get eyes on. And the jungle's thick, so you got to get close to get eyes on. You know, and everything that you have, it's like adventure racing. Everything that you have is on your back. That's it. There's no cabinet to go into to pull something out of. There's nobody to knock on the door and say, I'll take a cheeseburger, you know. Everything's right there. And I love that. I love that. There were times also in adventure racing where we were out of food, out of water, lost, you know. And you really have to be determined. You really have to be comfortable being in that bad space. You know what I mean? And there's so much uncertainty because there are people out there that are going to hurt you if they can or kill you, you know. And you have to be able to trust the guy on your left and the guy on your right, you know. Our soldiers, patriots, most of them are, but that's not what they do. Why they do what they do. They do it for the person on their left, the person on the right, you know. And they'll all tell you that. Yeah.
Wow.
Could you, just to give us a better picture, could you detail like the reality of all you have is what is on your backpack, and you're in the military, you have to do a reconnaissance mission, you're leading it through the thick brush of Central America. Like, can you detail the reality of that? Like, what is happening? Like, what's going through your mind? You just get dropped off in Central America.
Yeah,
you're leading a pack of.
You'll do several false insertions, right? Because you don't want the bad guys to know when you're really getting out of the chopper. So you do a bunch of them at night. And sometimes you get out on the first one, sometimes you get out on the fourth one, you know. And as soon as you get on the ground, the chopper's away, you do what's called a security listening halt. Everybody's still. You're letting your eyes adapt to the darkness. You're letting your hearing adapt to the natural sounds around you. And you're listening for anything that could be important, right? And then after 30 minutes, an hour, you start your mission. And you have to navigate with a map and a compass. Then, now they get GPS that'll actually take them there, which is great. And you have to move without getting caught, you know. Then you get on, depending on what the mission is, you get on target, you find what your objective, and then you spend days just detailing information. So how many soldiers, what's their direction of travel, what weapons are they carrying,
You're camping out in the woods.
It's called a patrol base, and it's not camping because you're never unpacked. You're always packed.
Oh, really?
So it's just basically laying on the ground up against your pack, weapon in your hands, catching some nods. And we never really slept much, a couple hours at a time, maybe.
How long would one mission last?
It depended on the mission. They definitely varied, anywhere between 2 days and 2 weeks. So, and sometimes things are just hard to find. I spent 10 days trying to coordinate a hookup between the 82nd, a company from the 82nd Airborne Division and a company of Contra Freedom Fighters in Central America. We knew basically where the 110 guys from the 82nd Airborne were, and we still couldn't find them.
Wow.
They're in the jungle, they're camouflaged, they're trying not to be found. It was challenging. Things are much better now with technology. Things are much easier, and I do envy that. Like, we had night vision, but it was bad. It was really bad. And today it's amazing. So GPS, satellite phones, all that stuff. But it's more crap you got to carry too.
Do you think it'd be scarier now or back then?
I couldn't be in the Army now.
Yeah.
I just think there's a dearth of leadership among our general officers. They're all looking for their next job as a correspondent. I think that they've completely let their military down, and I just don't know how soldiers are doing it, and a lot of them are getting out. I mean, morale's bad.
What's the difference between whenever you were there and now then?
I don't know. I think it was just like so many other changes in our culture, right? With technology, with smartphones. As far as why this is happening with general officers, one, there's too many of them. There wasn't nearly this many when I was a soldier. And two, I can't question their values because I don't know them personally.
Right.
But if I were commanding forces in Afghanistan, my goal would be to win that fight, period. American soldiers are the best fighters in the world, bar none. There is not an army out there that we can't beat, period. The only thing that's stopping us is the politicians and the generals. That's it.
Now, I don't want to poke at this too much, but something that bothers me is when people aren't reluctant to, like, they're not looking to, like, avoid war. Like, they're just so easy. Say, like, the Democrats are so easily just say, I support Ukraine, or like, I support Russia, or whatever, like, without actually knowing the realities of what's going on and with these treaties or with whatever. Like, what are the realities of war? Because every time I ever hear someone talk about it, they talk about there's no like winners in war. No. It's just death and destruction.
Right.
And what you're supporting, you don't actually understand what you're talking about. You're just saying that because maybe your party aligns with it, or because you're like you're virtue signaling, but you don't actually understand what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, war is an ugly thing. I can't remember whose quote this is. I wish I could. But not the ugliest of things, the decayed and degraded state of a man's courage or vision when he just surrenders himself to a slave life or a certain type of life or a communist life is much worse than, than the actual fight. Who wants to live like that?
Right.
Ukraine clearly does not. They know what it was like. They had a good taste of it for a long time. Now they know what freedom's like. Now they know what democracy's like. And that's where their courage comes from. Just like our founding fathers, I mean, they weren't going back. Pitchforks and muskets, whatever they had, they were gonna win their freedom. And they did.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. If you have no goal and nothing to fight for, then what's living?
Yeah. No, I totally believe that, I think a hard part of it for me is that I'm losing faith in our government, in our country. I really am. And that hurts as a veteran, you know. I mean, I don't ever want to be the person to say I don't love my country. I love my country, but I hate my government. And I can tell you this, guys, all the problems that we have today, all of them, every one of them, you can look to term limits. Every single one of them. Until we have term limits, we're not going to get better. This happened on Mitch McConnell's watch as much as it happened on Nancy Pelosi's watch. They're both responsible. And until we have term limits, I don't see anything improving. I really don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad because it's just everything in our culture right now just emphasizes all the bad parts of that too, like the media and TikTok and short form media is so common now.
Yeah.
Like I don't even myself personally, I know that's a problem, but whenever I go to consume content, I never watch something for more than like 15 minutes, you know, and that's a long time for like a YouTube video or something like that, unless it's like a Netflix documentary or something interesting like that. But you know, the stuff I watch now, it's more like 60-second clips that are just like sound bites of a broader podcast or something like that.
Yeah. I think we all are that way to some extent, you know what I mean? Even myself, I know I am, but I try to look at history more now. We're getting ready to float the Grand Canyon over 100 miles. Yeah, we're going to raft it. 14 days in the canyon. And
who's we?
Julie and I. And reading Down the Great Unknown. And this guy, man, that led that first expedition with one arm. And can you imagine being the first ones to get down there in the wrong boats without life jackets? You know, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying reading his history, learning his story before I go to these exact same locations.
It's kind of funny that whenever you're talking about being in the military and you're like, you know, we had to hide all the time and be like in this scary situation. That made me think of like whenever you're a little kid, like whenever I was a little kid, I would go like try to spy on people and see if you don't get caught. Yeah. And then now when you're old too, you're also trying to do that with like the Grand Canyon. Yeah. Now it seems like you're just constantly seeking out an experience that is going to be similar to that like fight or flight, but you have to make sure you're level headed at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of trust in somebody else. I have a lot of experience with whitewater, and I'm pretty high level comfortable swimming in whitewater. But this is a whole nother animal. I mean, this is the Grand Canyon. These waves are twice the size of this house, you know. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. Excuse me.
Yeah, for people listening, this is just the Grand Canyon we're talking about. Doug has about 1,000 other stories of you doing similar shit like that.
We've had some fun. I've been very lucky. You know, I mean, and to some extent, my military experience has really played into that, right?
Yep.
Jumping out of planes at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
With 100 pounds of equipment strapped to you. Going to jungle operations training school in Panama. Going to the Military Mountaineering Institute, Fort Greely, Alaska. It's just kind of all those foundational bricks and mortar in who I was as a person put me in a position that when expedition and adventure racing came along, I was really well suited for it.
Let's talk about adventure racing. So why don't you just describe what an adventure race is?
Adventure race is a sport where generally co-ed teams of 4 race across the wilderness unassisted. So they navigate map and compass. Races can be anywhere from 12 hours to 7 days. And it's a lot of fun. The different disciplines are orienteering, trekking, mountain biking, kayaking, rafting, or canoeing, mountaineering, caving, and then other things, you know, snowshoeing, whatever. And there's no arrows, nobody giving you food, nobody clapping, hey, good job, you know. It's just you and your team out in the middle of nowhere going. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, right before COVID, we did Africa. And the year before that, we did Portugal. And I think the year before that, Julia did China.
Wow.
So, and the thing is that the races are designed so that you go to the places that you want to see in the wilderness. You know, you paddle the Yaak River and then you rappel off the big bridge, you know, and you're up in Maple Summit at night or in the Conservancy at night, you know, and it's just a really sport. That's a sport that requires determination, tenacity, fluidity, lots of highs and lows, you know, and you just got to keep pushing forward, you know. I think it's a great analogy for life. Just keep moving forward, you know, and that's what adventure racing is all about.
And you competed yourself for a while. How many years?
Oh, yeah, probably 18, 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time. You know, I started out racing professionally for a company out of California called Fog Dog Sports. And it was great to be paid to do what I love, you know, to be taken care of and treated like an elite athlete and to not lose a lot of money doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's the training like for that?
Just putting up mileage, you know, 50-mile bike loops, 100-mile bike loops, 20-mile runs, go spend a day on the ropes, you know, which is always fun, right? But just putting up mileage.
Yeah.
It's not much different than an Ironman triathlon. You're just putting up mileage, you know?
What are like what kind of stuff comes up when you're in these races? Like you run out of food, you're lost.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
I don't know, you get bit by a jaguar or something like that.
I know nobody's been bit by a big cat, but you run-ins with bears for certain. But yeah, I've been several times out of food, out of water. You know, I've drinking water that you wouldn't wash your feet in, and you know, just so thirsty. And that's part of it, isn't it? Right? If you're doing a sport like that, you want to know what you're capable of.
Right.
That's why you're out there. You want to hit the hard places, and they're gonna find you. I don't care who you are. You know, I've raced with some of the top athletes in the world, like multi-time Ironman triathlon champions, IMBA mountain biking champions. You know, I mean, the best athletes in the world, and everybody gets it. Everybody's gonna get it. You know.
This is a sport where are you heavily relying on your partners, the people you're going with?
If you lose a team member, you're done. Your team is done.
Oh, wow.
Everybody's out. So
What do you mean lose a team member?
if a team member is injured, if a team member gets sick and can't go on, heat casualty, whatever, the entire team is disqualified. That's a lot of pressure. You know, it's why, like, you guys are elite level wrestlers. You're on a team, but if you get pinned, your whole team's not getting pinned. The next guy in the next weight class can win his match.
Right.
In adventure racing, anybody's out, the team is out.
Have you ever been a part of a race where something tragic's happened to you or one of your teammates and you're like, yo, we're not quitting this. Like, I'll carry you if I have to.
Africa, the last one, started with a sailboat race. It was huge. I mean, I don't know how many teams were there. You can Google Expedition Africa. All these sailboats taking off at one time and massive collisions, bodies flying through the air, nearly getting T-boned by other boats. It was frightening. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. And we pulled away from the pack. We pulled out to the front, and our main line broke. And as soon as it broke, the boat was upside down in the ocean and sank. All of our gear's tied in the boat. You can't go on without your gear. Luckily, Ron, one of the team members, was an elite military diver, and he said, "We need a mask and a snorkel." And one popped up out of the ocean right there, like on cue. And he started diving. He would dive down 30 feet, whatever, untie whatever he could get his hands on, bring it to the surface, go back down. Now we're 2 miles offshore against the current, and we have to finish the race, right? We have to keep going under our own power. They came out, they said, you know, come on, get on board. And I said, if we get on board, are we still qualified? They said, no, you're disqualified. Well, the race had just started an hour earlier. I'm like, we're not doing that. So we spent hours swimming, hours. And when we got to the transition, which was to bikes, everybody was gone. Nobody else was there.
Wow.
I don't even think there were any volunteers there. That's how late we got there.
Wow.
And we're like, hey, we got 5 days to pass people. Let's go. Just keep going. Yeah.
How'd that end?
Well, for me, it didn't end well. It ended with surgery. But the team did well.
We got second.
my knee was bad going into the race, and it hyperextended twice, and I ended up having surgery a short while later, which is fine, but I was dead. I knew I was done the second time it hyperextended.
Mm-hmm.
To see that was kind of like terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like getting shot at terrifying, but you don't want to be injured.
Something I'm curious about, because this is something that really correlates with wrestling. When you're in these adventure races, or if you're on a military operation, or I don't know, if you're delivering a baby goat now these days, anything like that. Something that I feel like the military emphasizes, and something that like the wrestling and combat sports community emphasizes, is that you can't let your emotions play into your actions. Like, all you can do is focus on exactly what's happening right now. So say you're in a wrestling match and you dislocate your finger and your heart rate's at 200. Like, you have to let go of all of that and you just have to focus on what the next move is. You could correlate that to you're in an adventure race and you tear your ACL or something. You have to just focus on what's happening. Or if you're in a reconnaissance mission, you know what I'm trying to say. Do you learn this in the military? Do you have to develop this while you're in the military, or do you just come naturally to you?
My dad was tough growing up, and he was hard on me, which I appreciate now. But still, when you're in the military, you're in situations that you couldn't possibly have been in before because you weren't in the military, right? And you go to a school like recondo school or ranger school or, rough terrain jump school. That sounds like a lot of fun, right? And Military Mountaineering Institute. You're not climbing El Cap in spandex. You're carrying a 75-pound load up a cliff, And all those experiences in their own parts are parts of who you are. And that's where your toughness comes from. When I came out of recondo school, I thought I was the baddest cat in the planet. I mean, I'd walk down dark alleys at night. I didn't care. I thought I was that bad of a dude coming out of recondo school because like 223 people started the class and 21 of us graduated. It's impossible.
What that class entail?
It's all guerrilla warfare. That's all it was. Hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, explosives, a lot of running with combat loads, and you had to be fast.
You're fighting your teammates?
You fight your classmates, yeah. There's a pit. It was called the pit. And it was sandbag circle, about 3.5 feet deep with sawdust inside. And everybody gets in the pit. And the only way you get points is if you're the last one of the last couple guys there, And anything goes.
That's crazy.
You're just fighting.
Everybody's fighting.
What's your go-to? You taking someone down, or are you kicking them?
They had to tap out, or you had to throw them physically out of the pit. So I was just farm boy strong. I'd grab guys and do a right hip throw or some type of a right shoulder throw, any type of a judo throw where I could get them off their feet, or just get underneath them and pick them up, a wrestle move and slam them on the edge of the bags. But
did you have any training prior to this, or they were just throwing you in a pit?
No, we had, everybody in basic training, you go through bayonet training, you go through hand-to-hand combat, But it's one thing to take a martial arts class. It's another thing to get into a pit with 150 paratroopers and somebody says go. I mean, not only are these bad dudes, they're trained bad dudes. They're not just punks running around acting tough. They're bad dudes, right? So I was terrified. I really, literally was terrified the first night, and I'm like, hey, I can handle my own in here, And that's what I mean. You have those experiences, and you kind of go through the gauntlet, right? And when you come out the other side, you're like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. It was fun.
I'm just picturing being tossed in a pit right now with 150. I mean, psychos probably, really. They want, and they're just trying to tap you. They don't even have, like, I don't picture you guys having necessarily good technique either with tapping someone else. So I just picture breaking someone's arm.
It definitely happened. It definitely happened. Kneecaps. Yeah, there were definitely broken bones.
Yeah.
And, the reality of that is steel on steel makes a sharp edge, right?
Right.
And that's what that was. That was all steel in that pit, baby. There was
sharpens
there was
iron.
nothing soft in that pit. You know, everybody in there was a bad dude. So, I mean, what better way to learn?
Imagine them doing that today. Those kids would leave and tweet.
It would never happen.
Officer made me sad.
Yeah. I mean, they closed recon school because of its.
Did they?
Yeah, it was too high nutrition rate, and they closed it down.
Too high what?
Too high of a nutrition rate.
Oh, okay.
For what it cost.
Jeez.
When you have more instructors at the end of the class than you have students graduating, that's
That's true.
And they were all the instructors are great Green Berets, you know, really great guys, great soldiers, and they gave me that confidence that I could lead a patrol. You know, it's called recondo school. You know.
Yeah.
And that they gave me the confidence that I could fight any warfighter anywhere. And
don't you think that that's kind of necessary though? Like, don't you think they should have more programs like that? I mean, obviously I don't know anything about the military, but just assuming that they don't have a lot of programs like that where they just pretty much sharpen you as much as they can, make you as tough as they possibly can. I would probably want that if I was going into that, because I don't want to go into a war, you know, without being completely tested to the brim.
And I'd have parents tell me later in my career that if Johnny joins the Army, I don't want him in the infantry. I don't want him in the combat units. I'm like, yeah, you do. That's where you want him, because then he's going to have people around him that know how to fight. Where you don't want him is driving a truck down a highway where anybody can take a shot at him. That's where you don't want him, right? You want him with the baddest dudes on his left and right, in front and behind. And you count on that. You know, I trusted my guys implicitly. I knew they would die fighting for me if necessary, and I would for them as well. And all the grunts know it. They all know it. You know, that's how it is. You know.
How long were you with that team that you were a leader of?
That was in 82nd Recon for like 4 years maybe. Wow. And then I went on to the light infantry. Then I went back to another light infantry outfit. And then I went back into the scouts, into recon. And so I had a lot of different experiences, which is great.
What was your official job title then with the military? Paratrooper?
No, that's your job. We're all paratroopers, but you're a private is the bottom of the, you know, then you have specialist, then you have corporal, who's a junior leader, then you have sergeant, who's a team leader, then you have staff sergeant, who has two teams under him, two team leaders. Then you have platoon sergeant, which is, he has 4 squads under him, so 40 guys. And then you have first sergeant, and I went all the way up to there.
First sergeant?
Yeah, I was a first sergeant for a while, rated, and then platoon sergeant for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where were you located at?
All over. Fort Bragg, Fort Ord, California, Panama, Pennsylvania in the 28th. Really great experiences. Still a lot of really good friends today, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the experience, not just because of the adventures, but because of the camaraderie, you know.
How hard was it to find people that were like down to die for you?
You know, when you're with each other, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, months at a time sometimes. You kind of know that you got to be there for each other. You know, it's not hard. It's not hard. Nobody wants it to happen, but it's us against the world.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to let you down. I'm not leaving anybody behind, period. And it's just kind of what you signed up for, you know? I mean, it's what you signed up for.
That's the interesting thing, though, is I feel like, at least from my perspective, anyone that I've ever known that wanted to go into the military, that is not what they're signing up for. They are not signing up to have 4 people where they're like, I will die for you.
Yeah, you know what? And I was a strength maintenance leader toward the end of my career. So I had recruiters, I had retention NCOs, I had career counselors, right? And I would tell the recruiter specifically, you look parents in the eye and you tell them if their son or daughter joins the Army that they might go into harm's way and they could be killed. You tell them the truth. And I feel like that should be a requirement.
For sure,
personally.
yeah.
I mean, if you're teaching recruiters, that should be a requirement.
Nowadays, it's like, don't tell them that because it will make them not want to join. Or
I didn't have a choice of joining. I had to join because I got in trouble for fighting. And it was join the Army or go to jail, you know. And I walked in the recruiter's office and said, I want to be a paratrooper. And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. He goes, sit down. You know, so it was pretty easy for me.
Tell us about that story. How did you got into a fight?
He was a bully. He was a known bully. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. I don't want to name any names. Everybody that it would matter to already knows. And he was just threatening people. He was just bullying, you know. And I was at a point in my life where I couldn't take it from anybody. You know what I mean? I was done with it. And so he hit that trigger, and I fired the shot, you know. Next thing I know, he's in the hospital, and I'm in front of a judge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, phew. So he said, he knew my dad. He said, I knew your father. He's a good man. I know your father. He's a good man. He said, you seem like a good kid. You have no prior records. He said, I'm going to give you a choice. And at the time, there were no jobs. There was a recession going on, and it was good for me, really good for me. It's the first time where I was somewhere where older men were nurturing me, you know, putting their arm around me. I was bad at so many things as a young soldier, you know, like I was not the soldier you wanted to have. I cared, you know, but I couldn't shine my boots, and they wanted to be shiny. They don't do that anymore. I really wasn't very good with pressing my uniform. Now they don't care about that either. Maybe I should have been in this Army. But, you know, I had older sergeants and corporals that would be like, you're going to be good. You're going to be okay. And they bring me along. Bring me along. And then I got to 82nd Recon, and my entire outfit was deployed. I was the only one there, and they needed somebody to go to school. And they're like, you're going to Recondo school. And I can remember the duty driver taking me out. His name was Joe. And he dropped me off. He said, I'll be back in a couple hours to pick you up. I'm like, no, it's 21 days. He goes, you ain't going to make it. I remember that, you know, and him driving away and me thinking, man, do I look that pathetic? You know, I was maybe 155 pounds wet. And 21 days later, I was one of the 21 that graduated.
That's sweet.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like I was looking around like, do they know?
That's so interesting that you were forced into the military, but then you accepted it.
Yeah.
And you were like, this is now.
Yeah, I love it.
My thing.
I love it. And just that I could go, you know, and have all these experiences in Panama and in Alaska and see these great wilderness. I mean, just incredible. And climb mountains, you know, and learn how to survive in the jungle, you know. I mean, I thought that was exceptional.
So you weren't resentful at all that you were forced into going to the military?
No, in fact, I knew at the time it was probably exactly what I needed because I was not going to do well where I was.
Wow.
You know,
That's interesting.
I was not going to do well if I stayed there. And I was just very quiet. I was very quiet in basic training, very quiet in my advanced individual training. I was just paid attention. I listened, tried to do a good job. And I was getting paid. I was getting fed. I had a roof over my head. I didn't care. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. I feel like a lot of people that talk about the military now that are more famous, a lot of them say similar things where like, I had to go to the military or I was going to do something bad in my current state where I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, for sure, because I had no father figure, so to speak. And I had no male role models. You know, I didn't have anybody saying, hey, don't make a bad decision or take time to make a good decision. You know, I had nobody mentoring me or coaching me. And I was pretty loose. You know, I was running with the wrong crowd, you know, fighting a lot, way too much. And it wasn't going to be good. It was not going to be good. So kind of like it was the best situation for me. And I knew it. Like when I got on the bus to go to the plane, to go to the military, I knew this was going to be okay. You know, I didn't realize that it would be as good as it was, but I knew it was going to be okay. And I knew I needed some discipline. So,
Yeah.
Did you go on adventures and stuff when you were younger too?
Yeah, for sure. Like growing up on the farm, I would saddle the horse and take a rifle and I'd go out and stay out.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how my mom did it, you know, but we all hunted, we all trapped. I was carrying a loaded rifle in the woods at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was like 7, you know, and it's just how it was, you know? I mean, come on, listen up. This is for real. We all wore knives to school. You're never going to wear a knife to school today.
No.
I took my rifle to school one time for show and tell.
Wow.
And the teacher cleared the rifle and put it in the cabinet in the closet.
That's
and we
funny.
did show and tell. I mean, we would go out at recess. There was a big field up behind the school, and we would go rabbit hunting. Today, no way.
You go rabbit hunting at recess?
Yeah, you could go rabbit hunting at recess.
What the hell kind of school did you go to?
It was just a little country school, you know, South Buffalo. And it was great. It was awesome.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's wild.
We'd have guys, I mean, everybody
Yeah.
in senior high had a rifle in the back of their truck.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just common.
Yeah.
And nobody would ever think
Always
of pointing
gonna
that gun at anybody or think of hurting anybody that way.
Yeah.
And when we'd have fights, you get called out, you go out, you throw knuckles on each other. When you're done, you shake hands. That's it. It was over. It's not like that today. I mean, it's crazy today. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's a different time.
Definitely a different time. It's sad for me because, you know, I did stand up in the back of the pickup truck going down the highway, you know, maybe not the safest thing,
Yeah.
but I didn't have to worry about being shot in a public setting by a complete stranger.
Right.
It was never a consideration. Never.
Yeah. Yeah, even me. I mean, I avoid any kind of confrontation with anybody at all moments in the public because I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't want to get in a fight. You know?
Right.
I don't know if they're gonna pull a knife out or shoot me or something.
I mean, you just have to make really good decisions.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is location, you know. But it's scary being a parent today. It's really scary.
Yeah.
And
do you think that these kind of things that are happening in the modern era have always happened even when you were a kid, and now we just have cell phones and we're just kind of seeing what's happening? Like when you were a kid, you never knew what was going on in California or Texas, you know, because you didn't have a phone. All you had was your local newspaper. But now I know that what's happening in whatever country I want to in the world. Do you think it's more now, or do you think that we just know what's happening?
I think it's both. I think it's happening now. It's actually occurring. Because had there been a mass shooting when I was a kid, you would have heard about it. It would have been on the news at night. A lot of it for me, but also then, Cooper, your question was that also it's in our face all the time now.
Yeah.
You can't turn your phone on without seeing what's happening wherever. In Ukraine, on the other side of the planet, you know, in China, you know. And I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for getting off or away from the phones. You know, it's probably the thing that I'm most excited about with the Grand Canyon trip is 2 weeks of nothing. No rings, no alerts, nothing. You know?
Yeah, I try to avoid scrolling on my phone as much as I can because I feel like anytime I get anxiety, I feel like that's a source of it. I just don't think that as a human that I'm meant to process like what's happening and all across the world, across the different countries, different conflicts amongst people. Like, I don't think I'm meant to process that. I think I'm like, it's weird to think about because it sounds cliche, but if you just like put your phone down and just try to think about exactly what you're doing in the moment or your exact reality, I mean, 99% of the time, it's probably way better than whenever you're scrolling on your phone.
For sure.
You're suffering way more in your imagination.
For sure. There's no question. I mean, and to your point, how much do we need to know? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't need to have an opinion on Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 20 years old. I don't even, there's no way I could even make an educated opinion. But everyone does. You know, and everyone does.
Well,
everyone
they think they
flag.
can.
Exactly. Yeah. They put a Ukraine flag in their bio or put a jab for the COVID vaccine in their bio. But like, you don't need to have an opinion on these things. Like,
right.
You're 20, you're 18, you're 25, you're 30. You know, it's kind of funny, you know?
Yeah. And for me, it's like, things were so much more simple before smartphones. You know, they're so much more simple.
Yeah.
When I was a kid growing up, I couldn't even call my friends on a hard line. You know why? Because they were going to be outside playing. If I wanted to see if they wanted to go for a hike, I had to go over to them. I had to literally run a quarter mile or half mile to their house.
Yeah.
Because they're not in the house waiting for the phone to ring, you know? And now it's like, I try to answer my phone less and less. I'm getting pretty good at it too. But I don't answer it nearly as much as I used to, you know, just there's no need for me to.
The thing that I hate about phones is everyone's expectation of you to respond quickly to
Availability.
Yeah, it's like if I don't have to respond to you for 2 months if I don't want to, you know.
Right.
And I do that a lot. Like everyone that I know that like loves me, they notoriously know me as the guy that they'll text and they'll be like, "Hey, we should catch up," and I'll text them back a year later and I'll be like, "You want to go get coffee or whatever?"
Yeah.
Because I'll respond when I want to. I don't really. You know,
and that should be okay.
Yeah, it's not like I hate you now.
Right.
They'll be like, "Oh, why don't you talk to me anymore?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm just living my life over here. I'm not."
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the best part about male to male relationships, though. Because I don't have to talk to you I haven't seen you in a couple of years. And we're just like, "What's up, man? What's up?"
I got together with my light fighters from Panama, right when COVID was starting, up in Boston. And we hadn't seen each other since 1988 with Task Force Hawk in Panama for the invasion. Hadn't seen each other since then, and it was like yesterday. I mean, there was no catching up. We were the same guys doing the same thing. You know, it was great.
I mean, that's like 40 years you haven't seen each other.
Yeah.
That's half a fucking lifetime.
Yeah, it's a long time, man. And and it was like I was in the van at the airport at Boston going to the hotel, and Jimmy Lloyd comes in right beside me. He was my squad automatic weapons guy, and he comes piling in, man, throws a hug on me. He's like, "Hey, are you carrying?" I'm like, "I'm not carrying." Hands me a piece, right? And that's how it was, you know? It was like nothing was missed, nothing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have that, you know, like the three of us are lucky to experience that with each other to a point because we were together so long, you know, and had those experiences for a long time. But in the military, it's hyper compressed.
Yeah.
And even the guys that you can't stand, you'd still fight for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are guys that I hated, just wanted to just punch them in the face every time I saw them. But if we were in a fight, they were my guy. Yeah. You know, that's how it is.
Yeah, I could only imagine the amount of camaraderie you would develop with someone by going into war with them, actual war with them.
Yeah.
You know, even in wrestling, I mean, just going through suffering with somebody else instantly makes you two that much closer.
Yeah,
you know?
look how tight football players are, you know, because you're like a band of brothers, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when people are dying,
It's a different level.
it's a different level.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed to be here, to be as healthy as I am. I can't believe my body is held up as well as it has, knock on wood. I should not be here. I should not be here. So I just got to take that with grace and, you know, and appreciate the fact that I am here and why am I here, you know? It's a lot of my motivation, you know, because there are a lot better men than me that aren't. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
The one thing, and people need to learn to be more grateful because it's good for you. That gratitude for your meal, that gratitude for the shelter, that gratitude for your friends, your family, just having a shirt on your back.
Do you think that gratitude comes easier to you because you've earned it? Like you've seen the realities. You've seen every reality of life. You've been to war. You know, you've been in the jungle starving, and now you're here. Now you have a farm in Central PA. Does it come easier to you to be grateful?
You know, I wasn't for a long time. When I came back from Iraq, I was in Iraq in 2007. I was in a little camp called Korean Village on the Syrian border in the Anbar province in the deadliest year of the war. I was with 33rd Red Bull, great outfit, and the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit, another great outfit. And there were other guys there, some SEAL teams and other things like that. But it was a bad, bad time.
What were you guys doing there?
Fighting. Every day. Those Marines, the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit went out every day and got in a fight. Every day. And a lot of good men died. And I came back from that. I was not the same person.
Yeah.
And I was not that same person for decades, right? I mean, for a long time, there's always a broken piece in me. And last August 2nd, I fell and I hit my head and I nearly died. My brain swelled out of my skull and I lost a lot of blood. And I'm very lucky to be here. But something happened this time. All the other things that have happened, this one made something in me click. And I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude. And I think before, and this is what I think it was, I think before I was probably living with survivor's guilt, you know? And I wasn't truly happy. I wasn't like focused on my happiness. Don't get me wrong, I didn't go moping around or anything. And I had a lot of happy moments. But there was a long period in my life there where I wasn't appreciative of my own life. And this most recent accident really changed things for me, and it gave me a lot of gratitude and also a lot of hopefulness. Like I feel very differently about my life today than I did a year ago. And it's strange, but it's true, you know? And being able to be present with that and realizing what was happening was really good for me because it gave me a lot of hope, you know? So now I'm like anxious to see what's next, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just grateful to be alive. So grateful.
How do you deal with the survivor's guilt? I can only imagine.
I didn't.
Like, what do you cope? How do you cope?
I didn't cope. I wasn't coping. I wasn't dealing with it.
Would you just say it's a form of PTSD?
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, everybody's different. People are, and you don't have to be in the military to have PTSD, right? But I know from my veteran friends that there are different triggers for everyone. And things that will make you angry or upset you or just scared, you know? People wouldn't know this about me, but I was afraid all the time. All the time I lived in fear. All the time. And I'd get up, I'd do my thing, you know, I'd go be Doug the adventure racer, go be Doug this, that, you know, whatever. But I was afraid constantly, you know, and that level of fear, I can't explain it to you. I don't know how to explain it to you. But I'm just thankful that I knocked the shit out of myself and knocked that out of there too, you know, because they removed 8 inches of my skull over here.
Jeez.
Yeah. You know, it was cool when I went back to see my neurologist. He said, "You want to see your skull?" I said, "You kept it?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I want to see it." And he brought it out. And I kid you not, you think it's thick? It's not thick at all. It's like an eggshell.
Wow.
And he brought out these black eggshell pieces. And I'm like, "That's it?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "It's awfully thin." He said, "Everybody says that."
Jeez.
Wow.
And it is, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that this was the closest you were to dying?
No, because I've had bullets snap past my head, you know. But if Ted hadn't come along when he did, I would be dead. Because my brain was swelling so much that it literally swelled right out of my skull.
Wow.
And I drove myself to the hospital in Monroeville.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah. I thought I needed some stitches because I can't see it. You know?
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was nuts. So poor Julie, she's in the Outer Banks and she gets a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all good now, you know? It's all good now. It's just another opportunity. Try to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, do you have friends that also deal with PTSD, and do they have a way of coping with it?
Yeah, you know what? my guys check on each other a lot. Like they check in, just do wellness checks. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
How you feeling? Everybody's different. Some people it's their faith. Some it's therapy. Some it's veteran counseling. A lot of the guys don't trust the VA, so they won't go there for help, which is bad. We're unfortunate. But I think everybody's different. I think everybody has a different support system. For me, it's Julie and my daughters. I've got great friends too. But for me, it was just being honest with myself and being present with my fear and saying, it's okay. Because I know it's okay. I did it, so it's okay. So, and I think everybody's different. I think people that have PTSD because they were attacked as a child by a dog or whatever. I mean, everybody's different, right? But it's okay to not be okay. That's the biggest thing. And you got to just say, well, that's okay. Look what I went through. Look what I saw. Look what I did as a human being. It's okay to not be okay. And if you were okay, that'd be a little concerning too, wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't be okay with that, So, yeah.
Wow. It's so cool to hear that your whole life is basically you start as a young farm boy, going out in the woods doing adventures alone, fighting people. Yeah. Then you have to go into the military, and that's all about planning and making sure your adventure, is going to go smoothly.
Hopefully.
And then you get out of that, and you probably have all of this other baggage that comes from the military, and then you transform that into adventure racing, being a producer of races and doing it in new places that have never been done, and always trying to push that further. And then now you're at this stage in your life where you're making a farm, and you're kind of just going through your day of like, well, what needs done today? I need to put trim over there, and I need to do this and this, and
we call it box checking, But this is a really cool property because of the history, right? There's so much history. Like the first Americans spent a lot of time right here, right at the edge of this meadow at that spring. We find hand tools, that's the old Indian highway going up over the ridge there. There's an Indian encampment somewhere between here and Falling Water. I mean, it's crazy. And so that's fun, getting to learn that history, But also, all farming is learning. That's all you're just constantly learning, what to do, what not to do, And then there's, swimming through the bullshit that is big ag today versus healthy farming like we're doing. And it's fun. It's challenging. You lose a goat. That's a lot of money on a small farm, But you just keep plowing ahead, so to speak, And if you don't enjoy the work, if you don't enjoy the challenge, this is a life that'll sort you out real fast. It's like a fighter getting into the ring. He watched Ultimate Fighting on TV. Now he thinks he wants to be a fighter until he gets in the ring with a fighter, right? And
like cage door locks.
Yeah, when it sorts you out real fast, man.
Right.
And we see that all the time in the military.
Sure.
You think you want to be a paratrooper. Okay, let's go jump out of that plane at 3 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, with 100 pounds of equipment strapped to you. Falling at 21 feet per second. Let's go do that. And we'll see how you feel after the jump. But it's, and it's a lot like sports, other sports. The military, you rely on your training. Your training takes over. Do what you're taught. And their method of teaching is exceptional. It really is. I'm sure it's only gotten better since I left. But they, more than any organization that I've ever seen, know how to coach people and train people, especially at the elite level.
Do you have a really crazy story about jumping out of a plane? The one. I mean, I know you have 1,000, but one that sticks out.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell were we doing right there?
Well, the first jump that I didn't make with my unit because they were deployed was Gallant Eagle 83. I think 7 guys died, and over 200 were medevaced. My first roommate was Specialist Dunlap. He died in the jump. I never met him. Never met the guy because they were deployed for this training exercise. And it was like 30, 40 knot winds. The guys were hitting the ground bad, you know.
It just wouldn't deploy?
The chute would deploy, but they were going 30, 40 knots
Wow.
into the Mojave Desert. Cactus, stone, pieces of equipment, you know. It was not good.
Was this was training?
It was a training jump. Yeah.
Dang.
And yeah, it was on the front page of U.S. News and World Report.
Yeah.
And no, for me, you know, like I had some really close calls, but my jumps were mostly went as planned, you know. I was learning I'd already been doing combat jumps, and I was learning how to free fall. Mm-hmm. And we were going up in the plane. It climbs real slow because it's a small plane. And it's got, you know, half a dozen people on it. It's going in circles. We're climbing. And I think we get up around 11,000 feet, and the engine shuts off. And my roommate, who was a world champion, Paul Rafferty.
A world champion in skydiving?
Skydiving, yeah.
Okay.
And he's a U.S. Army Golden Knights world champion. He's a top tier there, right? He was my roommate. He's the one that convinced me to go start skydiving, free falling. He looks at me with these big eyes and dives out of the plane. Well, I'm like, I'm out of here, right? I go out right behind him. Here, they had choreographed the whole thing for the pilot to shut the plane off and for him to act like he was terrified and jump to scare me, which worked. So more of a fun story than a serious. But I never really had anything happen in a jump that I couldn't handle, you know, that I didn't recover from or didn't get the chute turned around the way I needed to or whatever. I was always pretty good. I hit the ground hard a couple of times, but, you know, I got up and walked away, you know.
Have you ever done base jumping?
No, but Paul did. He was going back to the old school days. They would drive up to the New River Gorge and jump off the bridge before the bridge was open for jumping. They would just walk out on the bridge and jump, you know. So yeah, he was a great guy. He was nuts. He was totally nuts. Yeah.
He's still alive?
No, unfortunately not.
I feel like you have a lot of friends that you classify as nuts.
I have too many, for sure. I have too many, yeah. But mostly good nuts. And he was a guy that would do anything for his friends. I mean, he would do anything for his friends. He was so loyal, such a good guy. And a crazy talent. He would do things. If you see it in a James Bond movie under a parachute, he had already done it. He was the first one. Like people told him that he couldn't invert his chute. He couldn't have an open canopy and have his canopy below him and be above his chute. Everybody told him, you're going to fall into the chute and you're going to die. He's like, no, I won't. And he did it. He's the guy that would throw his chute out of the plane and then jump out after it and put it on.
Wow.
Okay,
That's wild.
He was nuts, crazy, and so much fun. He was such a fun guy. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Paul Rafferty.
I'm going to look him up.
Look him up.
You were on that Gladiator TV show.
Oh God,
I need to hear about that.
it was fun.
What was it?
I was in Arkansas, Barton Stadium in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I just landed there at the military professional education center, and there was a brochure in the gym, and I'm like, I got to do this. You know, I knew the show, right? And I show up with 400 other guys for the tryouts, and people are going out the door as fast as they're coming in. And I'm like, I finally stopped the guy. I'm like, why is everybody failing? He said, pull-ups. I'm like, oh, I got this. You know, I did pull-ups with 2 fingers. I could do 15, you know, because I climbed. I climbed all the time. And you go to the tryouts and it gets down to about 20 people, and then they start putting you head-to-head with the other contestants. And that went well for me, and I got on the show.
What was the gist of the show?
So you go up against these gladiators, which are all these animals, these big dudes, right? And meatheads. And you're going to try to accomplish an obstacle course, and they're going to try to stop you from accomplishing that. You have pugil sticks. You had breakthrough and conquer, which is breakthrough. You got to get past the guy. Conquer, you got to get another gladiator out of a small ring. And they're big dudes. I mean, they're huge. You know, I was pretty big at the time. For me, probably about 185 to 190. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. The tryouts were definitely harder than the actual competition. No question.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that when I get home.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know if you can Google it. I have some stupid pictures around here. That's not an outfit you want an old picture of.
Yeah, you had to wear the spandex.
Yeah.
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 That's funny.
Yeah, it was fun.
Tell us about the Belize Adventure Race.
You know what? It was extremely cold winter, and just Julie and I were just starting to spend more time together. And I said, we got to get out of here. I said, let's go somewhere. And didn't want to go to Costa Rica because it's too overdone, you know. And I had a guy in Iraq who purified water for me. This guy purified enough water for 1,000 Marines and soldiers every day.
Wow.
Using reverse osmosis by himself. And he was a guy I liked to talk to when I wanted to just calm down a little bit, right? And I asked him, what are you doing after the war? He said, I'm going to do small community reverse osmosis projects. I said, oh, that's cool. Where are you going to do that? He goes, Belize. And I'd been to Guatemala. I'd been to Nicaragua. I'd been to Honduras. I'd been to El Salvador. Been to Panama. Never been to Belize. So we went to Belize. I think it was day 2. We were over on the Guatemalan border, and there was a young guide there, and I said, would this be a good place for an adventure race? And he said, what is an adventure race? And I said, well, you race across the wilderness, you canoe, you mount. He said, oh, yes. He said, my father is Rafael Manzanero, my father-in-law. You should meet him. I said, yeah, I should meet him. He goes, okay, we go. I'm like, right now? And we did. And Joey and I started working on race courses. We produced 3, one every other year, 340 miles through the Chiquibulmaya Mountains. Yeah, teams from all over the world. And it's not like here. It's not like Wyoming or Montana. When you're in the Chiquibul, there's nothing out there. There's no 911. There's nothing.
I remember you talking about you were able to put the race in places that weren't people, like humans weren't allowed to go.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
What was that like?
You can't go past Maya Gate as a tourist. It's not like Yellowstone where you can go hike around. It's not like that down there. Not only that, nor would you want to. Okay, I mean,
Yeah, it's for your protection.
Yeah.
Not for the protection of the
right?
site. Yeah.
We're not worried about the jungle. Okay, but yeah, they've got really unique access to the Chiquibul Cave, which is now known to be the largest cave in Central America. It's massive. To sinkholes, we rappelled into sinkholes a quarter mile. You know, just crazy wild places, and we produced it twice for I think once for NBC Universal and the other one was for I don't know what that network is. It's a global network, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We got to work with a lot of really cool people, especially most importantly the FCD Rangers. Great guys. Julie and I went on a 5-day patrol with the Rangers. I mean, who gets to do that? You know, it was awesome. I loved
That's
it.
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's a beautiful people, beautiful country.
What kind of dangers were presented in that race? 340 miles across pretty much untouched land, probably jumping over waterfalls, fighting off monkeys. Like,
You know,
what kind of dangers were presented?
The monkeys aren't too bad. I mean, they get a bad rap. They look scary when they're coming at you, but very seldom they got to do anything about it, you know. The cats aren't going to bother you. I mean, the big cats, they want nothing to do with you. They're very reclusive. Poisonous things, all kinds of poisonous things. Everything's poisonous. Like, if you're moving at night, don't reach out and touch stuff, you know. Fertilance.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, Fertilance is like a rattlesnake on steroids. Rattlesnake is a real chill snake. I've had them between my feet. I've had them up against me. I've never felt in danger with rattlesnakes. I mean, they're just chill. They don't want any problems. Fertilance would be like point at you and go, I'm going to fuck you up. And that's how it is, right? And there's a lot of them. And if you get bit by one, you're in trouble.
My uncle got bit by one.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, I remember that.
Yep, Chris, yeah.
Yeah.
He was working. I don't know if he was in Panama.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he got bit while he was working in a field. I don't know exactly what happened after that, but he's alive. So
he's lucky he was in Panama and not in the Chicky Bowl because he'd have been dead.
oh, definitely.
You're not getting out.
Yeah.
He was doing research.
Just the normal things when you're in remote places like heat. Heat's a big deal, but there's a lot of venomous snakes, plants, things like that.
Is it hard to get water?
Very hard to get water. You would think in the jungle there'd be water everywhere. It's all underground. That's why there's all these caverns. That's why there's all these caves. That's why there's all these sinkholes, because all the water is underground. And that's why we had them go to the Chicky Bowl Cavern, because it was the only place where they could get water out there. And I mean, literally every team that came in there was out of water.
Wow.
Everyone.
Wow.
It's serious. Like, it's one thing to run out of water in Ohio Powell State Park. You walk downhill, you're going to hit a river. You run out of water in the Chicky Bowl, you could die.
That's crazy to think that just traversing the mountains in Belize would be hard in itself, and then it's like, oh, you want to race it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were flying. The lead teams were moving, man.
That's crazy.
It was hard to believe.
Did they finish it in how many days?
The first time it was under 3 days. The second time it was like 3.5, 4 days.
3 days, so 100 miles a day in the jungle.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you do that?
They're super athletes.
It must be
they're really good
that's
athletes.
insane.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of swimming involved, or is it just moving to the jungle, getting through?
A lot of mountain biking on fire roads, a lot of trekking on foot. Some of that was very remote. A lot of paddling. Belize has beautiful rivers. The Mopan is just a gorgeous green river. I love it. And then a lot of mountaineering because of the sinkholes, because of the caves. Last one we did a 7-mile cave hike swim.
Wow. And
it was beautiful. I mean, it was just beautiful. Light coming down through the top of the cave inside, sand beaches inside, in and out with the jungle, We went to a waterfall that was 500 feet. We went to a waterfall that was 1,000 feet, 1,000-foot falls. We did a Tyrolean traverse above an 80-foot waterfall, which 80-feet waterfall in Belize are like common. It's like Ohio Powell. Everybody's like, "Oh, look at the great waterfall."
Yeah.
Like, they don't even talk about that in Belize, But yeah, it's a beautiful country, beautiful and very wild.
Did you ever think about living in Central America?
I did for a spell, but then I realized that, my family's here, my friends are here, that'd be like checking out. I could do it for a couple months at a time.
Yeah.
And we did. We were there 2 weeks at a time, 4 times a year for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we have a lot of friends there. I mean, friends, relationships that we built, and they mean a lot to us, still.
Like we were talking about earlier, how the modern world is different than how you grew up. I feel like that didn't happen to a lot of those Central American countries.
Right.
Like you go to Belize, they're living in a simpler time, but seemingly happier kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the people are. They always seem to have a pretty good attitude, for the most part, no matter where you go. And very welcoming, give you the shirt off their back type of people, and always feel safe there, always felt like the help was there, the support was there. They would go out of their way to help us, And what we were doing was very hard, And not only from like Friends for Conservation Development, which is a great follow on Instagram, but from like the Belize military, things like that, local businesses, the outfitters, Pine Ridge or Hidden Valley and Pine Ridge, Black Rock Lodge. I mean, just really great places. Ian Adamson's Caves Branch, really top shelf places. I'd highly recommend.
You're giving me the travel itch.
You do it.
I want to. I mean, Belize is my all-time favorite place I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
The people are cool. The food is great. You just got to be there at the right time. You know, you don't want to be there in the rainy season if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
But
There's
yeah,
something about being in the jungle, though.
Yeah, I love
It's
it.
just so raw, so real. You know what I mean? That's like real world right there.
Yeah.
You know, you're not worried about what someone thinks about you. You're not worried about, I don't know,
You can go
modern problems that aren't real.
No. And you can go to Caves Branch and rappel in the sinkhole. You can go to Caves Branch and do the cave swim, you know, and they have really excellent guides, like top shelf guides, you know, and the food's amazing, you know. But yeah, those are experiences that aren't, they're not sterilized, you know what I mean? They're just as wild as it gets.
Dude, those are the best because like I'll notice that when I was younger, I used to take pictures on my phone all the time because I just like photography. And then the older I got, the more I realized that the pictures I took were actually really shitty in relation to the real life version.
Right.
And then when you go on a trip, it's like maximized and you're like, I'm not even touching my phone because I'm not even going to remember half of this shit anyway. So I need to just be here right now and make sure that I'm paying attention to everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And sometimes it's nice if you see something and you have the opportunity to get a shot. But for the most part, just be immersed, you know. And that is a wild ass place. I mean, it's wild.
Doug, we got to do a trip.
Dude, that would be awesome.
We got to do a trip to
awesome.
South America or Indonesia or something like that. Have you ever been to Indonesia?
No,
Like Bali or Thailand, any of those countries?
no.
Man, I would love that.
I'm not traveling that far. I
that's
want to
too
know
far.
this 5,000 acres intimately
Yeah.
right here. You know, I want to explore that. I want to find more artifacts, and just get to know it intimately. You know.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Western PA.
It's like a
Laurel
jungle.
Highlands?
It's like a jungle
Yeah.
in the summer, and it's like I
Pretty
mean,
shitty in the winter.
the winter's not great, but you know when the summer comes around, it rivals anything out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Anything out there.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, just all mountains.
Love it.
so green. It gets so thick. You know, like from the winter to now, it's like you can't even see 5 feet into the forest. Compared to the winter, you could see 200 yards. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Laurel Highlands, man, what a gem. I mean, you think about all the parks
Yep.
and the forests and the game lands, and it's all connected from north of the Turnpike all the way to Maryland and West Virginia. You know, it's solid wilderness. Yeah, I can walk right out this door and walk 5 miles to Falling Water, and then walk past that and go down up through Game Lands 51, and the only highway I have to cross is 40. And I'm in Maryland, West Virginia, or West Virginia. You know, it's a big deal. You know,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Some good hunting out here too.
great
Good
hunting.
Whitetail hunting.
Yeah, great hunting. I just ran into a guy at a tractor shop that shot a deer down here in the Conservancy, and he was showing me a picture, and it was a bruiser. You know,
Have you ever gone bear hunting?
I have. It's not something I really I wouldn't say I'm real motivated by it, but I'm not real motivated about harvesting deer either, other than the meat.
Right.
You know, like, you know, once you hunt men, everything else is kind of like whatever, you know.
I guess that's fair.
Wow, never
And
thought of
they're
that.
and they're hunting you back,
I guess that's
You know.
fair. Yeah.
you know. So
I haven't thought about it that way.
The ultimate competitor.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it that way.
but I enjoy the healthiness of harvesting deer, my own meat, but I take no pleasure in it, not at all. You know, I want it to be a clean kill, obviously, but other than that, it's just putting the time. I don't get like a lot of people get really excited about shooting a buck, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I'm not a sexist. I'll shoot a doe, no problem. You
Yeah.
know, I just want to eat it. I don't
Right.
care.
For sure. I guess you're just probably grateful that it's not shooting you back.
Right. I don't have to duck.
That's the kind of gratitude that I won't have.
I don't have to
I
shoot
don't have
and
that
roll.
kind of gratitude. Yeah.
I'm up. He sees me. I'm down.
Good. Well, we love you.
Love you too. Thanks
man.
for taking the time, guys.
Oh yeah, you're a
That's
great
fun.
guest.
Yeah.
Definitely do a bunch more.
Well, I have to go back and listen to the one with your mom now. I
yeah.
can't wait to hear that. I know it's going to be great. Tell everybody we said hello.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. All
appreciate
right.
it, Doug.
Cool.
All right. Love you guys.
Love you.